Okay, so now let's just take what you saw and put it to use. So in To Kill a Mockingbird, the first chapter, we have tons of characterization, but all the characterization for the most part is given through the perspective of Scout. And Scout, we learn quite a bit about her through her perception of the other characters in the novel, or at least the ones we're introduced to so far. So let's start with Dill. Dill, first thing he says is, "I'm Charles Barker Harris, and I can read." All right, right away, this tells us that he needs to brag. He's a bragger. We also know that he has this big fancy name, and Jem actually comments on it, and Dill's response is, "Not any funnier than yours. Aunt Rachel says your name's Jeremy Atticus Finch." So he is quick to defend. And also quick to attack. Then, later on, Scout tells us that Dill told the story of Dracula, and she says, when Dill reduced Dracula to dust, telling us that basically he told every last detail. So he's very specific, precise, almost too much so. Then we get just Scout's narration of Dill, of what he looks like. And the first thing she says is that Scout was a curiosity. Okay, interesting word choice there. So that means that Scout's intrigued by him. She has never met anyone like him before. Then she says he wore blue linen shorts that buttoned to his shirt. His hair was snow white and stuck to his head like duck fluff. He was a year my senior, but I towered over him. As he told us the old tale, his blue eyes would lighten and darken. His laugh was sudden and happy. He habitually pulled at his cowlick in the center of his forehead. So the first part of this is direct characterization, because we're learning through narration exactly what he looks like. So he's short, proper clothing, really kind of ugly, if you ask me. But then the second part of this narration is actually indirect characterization, because it's as he told us the old tale, his blue eyes would lighten and darken. So that's telling us that Dill gets really into the story. Additionally, his laugh was sudden and happy. This is a happy kid. He's optimistic in a way. And then he habitually pulled at his cowlick in the center of his forehead. So he might be a little nervous or have something on his mind. And the reason I say that is because generally we have nervous habits like playing with our hair, picking at our fingers, twiddling our thumbs, tapping. A lot of times that's because we've got something else psychologically going on in our mind, and our body needs to physically represent that in some way. So based off of all of this, okay, we've got a combination of direct and indirect characterization. This part is indirect. Here, this is indirect, and then also indirect. But we learn quite a bit about Scout as well. We learn about Scout that she is judgmental. Okay, she definitely is judgmental, this whole when Dill reduced Dracula to dust. Also, she's very insightful. But in this exploratory way, she's observant. Okay, so now let's move on to Calpurnia. Our first introduction to Calpurnia is Scout saying, "Calpurnia is all angles and bones. She was nearsighted. She squinted. Her hand was wide as a bed slat and twice as hard. She was always ordering me out of the kitchen, asking me why I couldn't behave as well as Jem when she knew he was older, and calling me home when I wasn't ready to come." Okay, you definitely get the tone of the angry child, okay? Here you have Scout really criticizing. She's really criticizing Calpurnia. The fact that she says Cal is all angles and bones means that she's hard, okay? And not hard as in she's just a physically hard person, but that her personality is all angles and bones. She is going to do what needs to be done, and she is not soft around the edges. She talks about how she squints. Her hand was as wide as a bed slat, twice as hard. This is telling us that Cal has hit the kids, or at least it has hit Scout. She's always ordering me out of the kitchen, asking me why I couldn't behave as well, and calling me home when I wasn't ready. All of this, to me, sounds like a mom. So she here is acting like a mother. And of course, we're learning from Scout that she doesn't like being bossed around. And remember, Scout's lost her mom. She never knew her mom. So she isn't really taking to this whole mom thing very well. In chapter 2, Scout blames Calpurnia for the fact that she learned how to read and write. In fact, she says, Calpurnia would set me a writing task by scrawling the alphabet firmly across the top of a tablet, then copying out a chapter of the Bible beneath. If I reproduced her penmanship satisfactorily, she rewarded me with an open-faced sandwich of bread and butter and sugar. In Calpurnia's teaching, there was no sentimentality. I seldom pleased her, and she seldom rewarded me. We're learning quite a bit here from indirect and direct characterization. Okay, we're learning that Cal is a religious person. We also learn that she is educated. She wouldn't be able to do this with Scout if she wasn't educated. We also learn that she believes education is important. Then we learn that she is a believer of rewards. But you have to work hard for them. And you have to deserve them. And we learn that here when she talks about how in Cal's teaching there was no sentimentality, meaning that she doesn't give the whole like, oh, you tried, here's a reward. Instead, Scout had to actually produce useful information. Okay, we learned so much about Cal, Scout, and Dill just from these little quotes. So when you're reading, really take notice of what's being said about a character, who's saying it, what's their opinion of the character, what's the character's actions, what can we learn about the character from those actions, what does the character say, and then ask yourself, well, why do they say this? What is the saying about them that they say this? There's so much to keep in mind. The characterization is not just simply to give you a visual of what a person looks like. Instead, it's supposed to give you a well-rounded idea of who this person is and why they have a role in the story.